In a very shocking and surprising deal, the Toronto Raptors have moved on from OG Anunoby, sending him alongside Precious Achiuwa and Malachi Flynn to the New York Knicks in exchange for Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, and a 2024 second-round pick from Detroit. First, I want to go through this trade from a New York Knicks perspective and give my general thoughts on the deal for them. I really like this deal for the New York Knicks because I think they upgrade some massive holes in their roster. First, OG Anunoby is a massive improvement over RJ Barrett as a starting small forward. He's a better defender and a better three-point shooter, and when you have Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, you don't need another guy to create offense. You need a guy who can spot up, knock down the three ball, and lock up a team's opposing best player, which is what OG does best. I think also they're going to have a pretty easy time of re-signing him, as OG's agent is the son of the New York Knicks, I think, president of basketball operations, which means that they already know what he wants. They have an inside line into his agency, and they can re-sign him probably at a cheaper number because he wanted to be in New York and he wants a little bit more touches on the offensive end, which I think the New York Knicks can give him more than the Toronto Raptors did and could. I also think he just provides a lot needed size and strength in their front court, because Julius Randle is a really good physical player and so is Isaiah Hartenstein, but off their bench they're pretty thin, especially after losing Obi Toppin in the summer, and I think OG just gives them that strength and size to really back down opponents and punish them when they are running super small ball lineup against the Knicks. Also, he's just an amazing defender, especially on the perimeter, and he can switch 1 through 5, which is something that is extremely valuable in the league. The next biggest part of this deal for the New York Knicks is acquiring Precious Achiuwa. Precious is not having a good year. He's had his minutes reduced as the year has gone on, but he provides much needed size and athleticism for the New York Knicks off their bench. After losing Mitchell Robinson and having to slide Isaiah Hartenstein into the starting lineup, there was no backup 5 off the bench for the New York Knicks. Taj Gibson is too damn old to be playing in the NBA, and we saw that with him in his first game after pretty much waving to the bench and asking to get subbed out because he just couldn't keep playing. Precious Achiuwa is going to be able to play for them. He's going to be able to be very versatile on the defensive end. And I think Tom Thibodeau is the type of coach who can get the best out of Achiuwa, because when he tries to do a little too much on the offensive end or steps outside of his role on the defensive end, Tom Thibodeau is going to bench his ass and tell him what he did wrong and make it very clear to him that to play in this system on his team, he has to play in this certain way. And I think Precious Achiuwa needs that structure and needs to be pigeonholed into a role like that, because right now he tries to do too much and he doesn't do anything well. But I think in a very small, reduced role as a versatile backup 5 who's there to play with a lot of energy and defend, he can do that at a high level. And I think that's what he's going to be doing for the New York Knicks. Malachi Flynn is an okay bench backup point guard. I think he was just in this deal to make the money work and so that they have someone to replace Emmanuel Quickley. The Knicks also don't really dip that much into their asset pool, only giving up 1 second rounder this year, so they still have all their first round picks to go out and trade for another star whenever and whoever that is. For the Toronto Raptors, I really like this deal. First, I think Emmanuel Quickley is the biggest part of the deal for the Toronto Raptors. He's an amazing player who was my 6th man of the year last year, and while he did have a disappointing postseason, I think he still is a really good player and could be a starting point guard on a lot of teams in this league, and I think he will start for us relatively soon if he doesn't start right away. Yes, he is a restricted free agent, but restricted free agents are way easier to re-sign than an unrestricted free agent, which is what OG Anunoby was. I don't think too many people are going to throw an insane bag at Emmanuel Quickley this offseason, and even if they do, I think the Toronto Raptors will re-sign him. It also lets us move Dennis Schroeder to the bench full time, and having a guard rotation of Emmanuel Quickley and Dennis Schroeder is probably the best guard rotation the Toronto Raptors have had since Kyle Lowry has left this team and Fred VanVleet became the starting point guard. RJ Barrett also, I think, is a lot better than people are giving him credit for. I think in the New York Knicks system, where he didn't really get too much freedom to really play the way he did. Yes, he did at certain times, but at some other points he got really pigeonholed. I think just getting a change of scenery for him, getting a new coach, and especially a coach like Darko who's going to empower him, speak to him very clearly and concisely, and give him a lot of confidence, I think RJ Barrett could flourish. I think the biggest part of this deal when it comes to talking about RJ is the fact that he's locked up until the 2026-27 season. And yes, he is making like $25 to $30 million over that stretch of time. I think it's easier to convince yourself that RJ Barrett can grow into a player who's worth that amount than spending that amount of money to keep a 26, 27-year-old OG Anunoby on this team long term. RJ Barrett has shown flashes, and he's only 23 years old. Having a guy like him alongside Emmanuel Quickley and Scotty Barnes is a very, very nice young core to be able to pivot into if this team decides to move into that direction full time, moving Pascal Siakam as well. I also think RJ Barrett being a Canadian is nice. We're having a hometown kid that we can really root for after getting Delano Banton, who didn't really pan out in the NBA, or at least not on the Raptors. RJ Barrett is a guy that the team and the fan base and everyone can really get behind and support. And I think he's going to do a lot better in this type of system than he did in New York, where there was more pressure. He was kind of pigeonholed to be a certain type of player a little bit more. And sometimes players just need to get moved to have a wake-up call to be like, damn, I really need to step up my game. He's only 23 years old. Now we have Scotty Barnes, who's only 21. We have Emmanuel Quickley, who is also young. Those three guys, I think, can grow into a very, very nice young core, or a nice core moving forward. And two of those guys are locked up long term, and I think we'll have no problem locking up Emmanuel Quickley long term. Losing OG Anunoby definitely hurts. I really like OG. I wanted him to be on this team long term because I thought he fit very well alongside Scotty. But he also wanted a ridiculous bag this summer, and I don't think the Toronto Raptors should have offered him that bag. And hey, maybe he can still come back to this team. I would be very surprised if that happened in free agency, but you never know. I really like this deal for them. I think it's a good pivot in the right direction for the Raptors, which needed to really pick a direction. This to me is picking the direction of, we're taking a step back. We're not going to a full rebuild, but we're taking a step back and we're going to build around Scotty Barnes and I guess now Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett moving forward. I like this deal. Losing Precious Achiuwa I think is not as big of a deal. Like, I like Precious, but I still think he just didn't have a place on this team. Malachi Flynn at best is a backup point guard. Emmanuel Quickley is so much better than him, and having a legitimate guard rotation of two players who I think are both NBA caliber point guards is going to be a massive deal for this team. I love this deal. We'll see what happens with Pascal Siakam. If he can get flipped into like a nice big who shows shooting touch, I would love that. I don't think that will happen though. So we'll see. I really like this deal for the Raptors. I really like this for the Knicks. So the right move in the right direction. Let's go.